Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Sonnet, the owner and creator behind Sonnet's Garden Blooms, and in today's video, you guys are getting a thrift to treasure. Not just any thrift to treasure, oh no, we are going to be focusing on Christmas and a cozy Christmas. So I recently thrifted 5 items, or rescued them, and we are repurposing them in today's video. So stay tuned and see how I create that perfect cozy Christmas. For project 1, I was at the Goodwill bins and this baby was laying there screaming my name. I loved it because it's metal and it was all distressed looking. I was not too fond of what was actually on the inside, and I noticed that a couple areas were a bit raised, so I took out my hand sander and just sanded those down so that when I did paint it, that you could not see the writing over that. So I went over the entire thing, I checked it, it was nice and smooth, and so let's bring it on inside and get painting. My vision for this is I am using the color Cashmere by Fusion. I'm also using the new paintbrush that I just got my hands on, and I am going to apply initially one even coat. I let that dry very thoroughly, came back, applied a second coat, and then it completely covered the entire image. You could not see it. I was very, very impressed, especially working with white. I didn't know if I was going to have to do a third coat or not, but it worked perfect. Next, I went into my stash of goodies, and I have been holding on to this Merry Christmas wording for quite some time, you guys. I picked it up at Hobby Lobby. It was in a clearance aisle. I actually got a couple, and I just was holding back using it because it looked so, like, I guess cheap looking. I didn't like that red. It looked plasticky. So I decided to use Highlander, which is a really deep, rich red from Fusion, and I applied 2 even coats of Highlander to both of these images. It completely transformed the look and feel of Merry Christmas just by adding a couple coats of paint. I am so excited to be adding these 2 words to that sign. Let's go ahead and get to the next step. Now I have a really high grit sandpaper, and I am just going to rough up all the edges, just kind of randomly go around, rough it up, and really bring back some of that like aged look that was underneath this beautiful cashmere paint. And you guys know how much I love distressing and all that good stuff. And I didn't want this sign to look perfect because it really isn't. It is old and weathered. And so I wanted to bring that back a little bit. And then I decided to add a little bit of crackle and texture to it. IOD has a beautiful stamp called Vintage Textures, and I haven't yet to use it, but I have always wanted to, and this is the perfect opportunity. Here it is, guys. It comes with 4 different textures, and in this one, we're going to use 2 different ones. And I think it will be perfect because I'm going to just randomly add some of the bigger crackle here and there, and then that tiny crackle, I'm just going to randomly place it as well. And don't always think you have to completely ink your stamp. You can stamp and then take the second, like, stamp again, because not all crackle is created equal. So there's going to be some that's really dark, some that's really light on your piece, and I wanted this to look really natural. So I just, like I said, randomly did it all over, and I absolutely love how this turned out. Now it's time to adhere the Merry Christmas. I am breaking out Type Bond. What I do here is I just add a little bit to all of the letters. I then take my finger and just wipe it all around. Just like with the mold, you don't want any of that Type Bond to ooze out when you lay your wording down. And the other thing that I did, and I did not show because it's kind of like not a perfectly flat surface, what I did is after I laid it down, I realized pretty quick trick that it was not going to just stick on its own because it's not a completely flat surface. So I did use blue painter's tape and I held it down until it was completely dry, and then took the painter's tape off, and it was perfectly secure at that point. I love how substantial this sign is, and with a little paint and some crackle, it completely transformed the look and feel of this, and I cannot wait to get this in my booth because I know it's not going to last long.
Summer's long gone, baby. The first snow is about to fall. Everybody's waiting for what's to come. We gather round the chimney, sitting close to keep us warm.
For project 2, I was recently at the Dollar Tree and I found these ornaments. They are much more substantial than the ones that I bought off of Amazon last year, and I love that they're not completely round. They actually have more of like a flat surface on each side. So I have been on a mission to try to use up my transfers from the holiday release, and I have 3 transfers left from Candy Cane Cottage, and I thought this was a perfect opportunity to use them. So I am breaking out poly, and I put this in a container. Last year when I made some Christmas ornaments, this worked out really great. I found this like little plastic container at Walmart. It was only 99 cents, and I put the poly in there, and I squirted just a little poly in each of these ornaments. The key here is you want to make sure that the entire inside is completely coated, but that there's not too much either. So that is why we're using the red solo cups. So I just take it and I maneuver it around until it completely coats the total inside, and then any of the excess I dump into the next ornament, and then any of the other excess I let it drip into the bottom of the red solo cup. I repeat these same steps for all 3 of the ornaments. I let that sit for roughly 10 minutes, and then we can move on to the next step. Now that the poly is semi-dry, we're going to add some glitter, and this will just give it like a real translucent look. It coats the inside. It's like an iridescent white. I loved it from last year when I found this glitter. And what I do is I take a piece of paper, I fold it in half, I dump some of the glitter onto that paper. I then turn my ornament back around so that the hole is facing up, and I just dump in the glitter into the ornament. And just like I did with the poly, I just maneuver it all around, completely coat the inside, and then any of the excess glitter, I just dump right back onto that piece of paper and then reuse it for the next one. I repeat these same steps for all 3 of the ornaments, and after they're done, I do let them sit for a while to let that poly completely dry before we put the tops on. Now it's time to put the transfers on each of these ornaments, and really it's as simple as lining them up, figuring out where you want to lay the transfer down, using your transfer stick. And what I do is I like to work from one side to the other. So I hold in the middle and I just kind of work my way around. And because it's not a flat surface, you just kind of have to maneuver here and there until the whole entire transfer is down. After it is down, what I do is I take that backing and I rub it all over the transfer, and that is called burnishing, and it really burnishes or embeds that transfer into whatever you're putting the transfer on. Typically, I would seal the item that I am putting the transfer on, and this is not going to get a lot of wear and tear. I decided not to seal these, but you could definitely seal it with like a poly or a big top. But like I said, I did not do that to this. The final step is to reapply the top. Now, if you notice, those wires are a bit long, and if you would put those in, they would scratch your poly and your glitter. So I take a wire cutter and I cut or trim them back just a bit, and then that way you can put that wire back in that top. Now, the top is not going to hold on, so what you'll need to do is I use like a bit of clear Gorilla Glue, and I just put a little bit of the Gorilla Glue in the top and then hold it on there and, make sure it's secure. Once it dries, that top is not coming off. I decided I did not like the silver strings that came with the actual ornaments, and I have been seeing like this like green velvety ribbon. I did not have any, so we are improvising. That is really what I want to add to these, but because I didn't have any in-house, I am just taking a bit of red ribbon and I am going to attach that first and then glue the top on. For project 3, I recently thrifted this picture frame. I loved how chunky it was, and I knew that I could do something pretty darn amazing with it. So my vision here is I recently had to cut a bunch of shelves for a new display. I had a bunch of leftover wood, and this piece fit perfect. I also have been dying to use the mold Old Christmas Tree, and so this is the perfect opportunity. I am using Cashmere from Fusion, and what I'm going to start doing is, first of all, I'm going to apply one even coat of Cashmere to the board, and then I am going to apply 2 even coats of Cashmere then to the picture frame. I'm going to let that dry very thoroughly, and then we're going to come back and we are going to start really transforming this picture frame and piece of wood. When using the IOD molds, you can either use the air dry clay or I like to use the amazing casting resin. If you look at all the molds, it actually tells you how many milliliters of that resin you'll need. These silicone containers actually have measurements. So there is a line for 60 milliliters and I needed 61 milliliters for the tree. So what I am doing is I am going to mix even parts of part A and part B of the casting resin, and I am going to do 31 milliliters of part A and 31 milliliters of part B, and that will give me enough for that entire mold. The key here is you do want equal amounts of part A and part B. Once you combine them, you want to thoroughly mix it. And I mix it for roughly a minute. And then I also make sure that I take my stick and make sure that all of the resin is in all the parts of the actual mold. It does take roughly 10 minutes to set up, and it's pretty amazing. Oh, like amazing casting resin? No, it really is amazing how it starts turning white, and you will know when it is completely done. It gets really warm, and then sometimes you have to wait just a little bit longer than 10 minutes and it's ready to take out of the mold. Well, that's completely setting up. I am breaking out Kindest Regards. This is by far, you guys, one of my favorite stamps. I love using it as a background, like mixed media type of look. So I am using my black IOD permanent ink, and I am going to ink up the actual stamp. I'm then going to stamp off. So I am going to stamp it on that craft paper in the background, and then I am going to stamp it on the piece of wood. I just don't want a real bright, vibrant black. I want it to be almost like a muted black, and that's why I'm stamping off. And it does not have to be perfect once I go to the top. I just lightly go here and there. If there was like a tiny opening, I just add a little bit more there. And again, this is more of just having something in the background. My vision initially was to paint my tree green, and then I wanted to add some glitter to it. So I am using Bayberry, another color from Fusion. It's absolutely beautiful, but as I started doing this, I love the color. Don't get me wrong, it was perfect. And the glitter looked pretty cool too, but it just did not go with my whole entire vignette. And if you guys have been following me long enough, you'll know that I like to take the items that I flip in each one of my videos and then put them together in my booth. And this, I just felt like even though there were greens in the ornament, it wasn't the look I was going for this actual picture frame. What I decided to do is use the making powder from DIY called Silver Lining. And actually, I had seen out on the IOD tribe page, somebody else did something very similar, but they used the making powder, like there was like a green color. And what they did is they lined the entire mold, like I'm doing, with the making powder. And then they used the casting resin, and it actually colored the casting resin, and it looked so cool. And I thought, oh my gosh, the silver lining is got like glitter. I think this would look absolutely amazing. So I am lining it completely with the silver lining making powder, and we're gonna see how this turns out. Now I'm ready to pull it out, and I start on top and I just kind of start working my way down, and I pull it out, and it's not exactly how I envisioned it was going to be. I love it. I like it, I should say. I like how it is. It's got a bit of white. It's got some of that silver lining making powder, but I think it needs a little bit more. What I decide to do is use cashmere and just randomly dab a little bit of that cashmere over the entire tree. And it's actually the spots that I'm adding the cashmere are where you can actually see the resin, the white of the resin, because I don't want that bright white. I want it to be more of like a warm, cozy feel. And I like how the silver lining has like kind of like glittery gold in it, and the cashmere just works with that perfectly. So I do that randomly all over, and then I'm going to let it dry. And then I get another idea. I'm going to add a little bit more of that silver lining to the wet cashmere, just to add just a little bit more glitter and glam to this entire piece. And now I'm going to let it dry. I set it down inside the frame, and you guys, I'm loving it. I really am. I'm thinking it's looking really good, but I always am going back to this green. I don't know why. I feel like I always have to add a pop of color. So I started off, I thought, well, maybe if I just brush a little green over some of the branches, it will just give it that extra pop to really make it pop off of all of this white. And as I'm doing it, I'm like, no, I don't think it's looking good. I think I should turn around. And so I close the top of the green and I walk away from the idea of green, And now I'm like, how am I going to cover this green up? Well, I'm going to break out more cashmere. I'm going to add more cashmere to it, and I'm going to try to blend this green to make it look like it was never here. And I was able to recover most of it. I think that really when you look at it now, you can't tell that there was ever green there. And again, I just start adding a little bit more cashmere. Then I decide I need to add a little bit more of the silver lining to the cashmere. And I'm going to just step away and let this all dry. And I then decide I'm just going to glue it down and I'm going to leave it as is until I decide I think it needs a little gold. So I started using DIY's gold gilding wax, and I just add a little bit of gold here and there, and it was exactly what this needed. There was one spot where I had gone a little heavy with the gold gilding wax, but I fixed it by just adding a little bit more cashmere to that spot, and it all blended so beautifully. And now I can honestly say that I absolutely love this. For project 4, this is going to be such an easy, simple one, guys. I recently thrifted this jar, and it was like kind of like a crock. There was no markings on the bottom. It had a top that didn't really fit, and I have one last transfer from Candy Cane Cottage, and I am going to use the top chunk of this where it says old fashioned hot cocoa. I think it will look just absolutely stunning on here. Now keep in mind, with transfers, if at any point you decide you do not want them on an object, all you do is take your heat gun and heat up the transfer and you can get it right off. So I am not wrecking this jar by any means. I am just enhancing its beauty for the time being. If I get sick of the hot cocoa on here, I can remove it very easily. So I line it up, figure out where I want it, and let's go ahead and get applying it. The first thing I do is peel off the back, centerize it, lay it down, and then I start taking my transfer stick, and just like I did with the ornaments, because this is not a perfectly flat surface, it can be a little bit trickier to apply. So you want to make sure that you're working in sections, and I always try to start on one side and work my way over. And so, like I said, some of the lettering, you just have to make sure that you go letter by letter as to not lose any of the letters, or if one breaks in half, just reline it up and then continue on over. A few of them did kind of break in half, but I was able to very easily just line it back up and lay it down and then continue on over. I love how this turned out, you guys. It is such a cute way to upcycle this jar. And like I said earlier, if at any point I don't want to have this transfer on here, I just will take my heat gun and remove it that easy. For my 5th and final project, I thrifted this old vintage frame. You guys, this caught my eye right away. I loved all that beautiful detail, and I didn't know initially what I was going to do with it, but I came up with an idea today. And for starters, we are going to be painting it cashmere. Not all of it. I want that gold to still be shining through, but all the wood, I want to paint that cashmere. So I am going to apply 2 even coats of Fusion's cashmere to the entire piece, let it dry very thoroughly, and then I also cut a piece of wood for the center. I am also painting that cashmere, and then wait till you guys see what I decide to do with this. My vision for this sign is I decided I wanted to have the reindeer names. And I have done this on book stacks and they turn out so cute on book stacks. I don't have a lot of little tiny books any longer, so I thought this would be a perfect opportunity to add a bit of the reindeer names by creating a sign. So I went into Cricut Design Space. I just wrote out all the different reindeer names and I just used what I didn't even pick I just think the font that actually initially came up is what I used. Here I'm weeding out all of the letters, and then I do have, it's kind of like a transfer paper, so I'll pick up all these letters and then transfer them onto the sign. Honestly, guys, I know you're going to ask what type of transfer paper. I threw away the box. So all I had is this roll of transfer paper. So I don't even know what it is. And here I'm just picking up all the letters. And once I pick them up, I'm going to line that up and then lay it down. I think after I did this, I think maybe I should have moved it over to the right a hair. I'm still loving how this turned out. I think it looks kind of cool, everything aligned to the left. But once I lay this down, then I'm going to come back. I am going to add Rudolph. I had a bit of red glittery paper, or vinyl I should say, so I am going to weed out Rudolph just like I did with the other reindeer, and I am going to apply Rudolph on the bottom, and I just think that turned out so cute just because of Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer. He's just such a cutie pie, and I think that pop of red is exactly what this sign needed. What did you guys think of today's video? I hope I've inspired you to go out and create your own cozy Christmas. Honestly, there are so many elements that go into coziness, such as lighting and soft materials, but I think color really plays a factor as well. And I was really inspired today by the Fusion Cashmere, and it's such a beautiful, cozy color. With that lead in though, that's my announcement, guys. I am going to be carrying Fusion paint. It will be available on my website very, very soon and at my Yield Goat booth. I am super excited. I think it's going to complement the DIY paint line perfectly. There's a lot of vibrant colors there. Fusion has a lot of neutrals, more muted colors, and it is a one-step paint. I have been wanting to carry a one-step for quite a while, and I have been kind of playing around figuring out which line I want it to go with, and Fusion just marked all the boxes. So I will be carrying not only the paint, but also the full milk paint line and the brushes. So on the website, at my Yield Goat booth, and eventually I'm hoping to have it at all 3 booths. So I am very excited about this opportunity, and I am so excited to be able to showcase different types of paint on my channel. So I hope you guys are as excited as I am. Now, Friday's video, I honestly do not know yet what I'm gonna do, but probably just maybe give you a glimpse of what's going on. I don't know, or maybe another thrift to treasure. We'll see. But I hope you guys have a great week, and I cannot wait to hear what you guys think about my big announcement. So in the comments, let me know, and we will see you Friday. Bye. Bye.